for everyone who like drove in across the state and flew in to be here and everything, wow, I'm really impressed and pleased and grateful for the support, and just super excited to share with you this morning some of the things we're thinking about, how we're gonna break the business model for solar and storage, break it and rebuild it really, really well, and like, because we're trying to do something completely new. And nobody's done this before, and I don't exactly know how to do it, and we have lots of smart people talking to us and helping us think about ideas, but ultimately, the entire community of people who've been installing solar and building solar and storage equipment, like, you guys have to be an enormous part of this. And so this is really for your feedback. So I'm not gonna talk a lot. I wanna just give you a little bit of our current thinking, but mostly wanna spend the time today to hear your thoughts and your feedback. We didn't get tomatoes for the bagels because I'd rather not have them thrown at me, but there may be some proverbial tomato throwing where you're like, what are you thinking? I know some of the ideas we might propose may be kind of challenging, right? And we're trying to solve something that's not been done before. So want to hear it and hear all the good, the bad, and so forth. So like Todd said, this is pretty casual and informal. Stand up and get coffee and bagels while we're chatting, or use the restroom or whatever. We don't have formal breaks built in here, so take care of whatever needs or interests you have. Okay. Everybody hopefully watched the presentation of the virtual webinar, whether you were on that live or had a chance to watch the recording of it. I don't want to repeat kind of the basics of the sustainable energy utility, except to say, you know, this is something that the voters of Ann Arbor authorized, right? It was many years in the making with a lot of input from our community. It's not like the way that I think the city would have dreamed of achieving our carbon neutrality goals. We wish that a lot of other easier, faster, simpler solutions were available to us, but given the context that we are in, this seemed like the best solution, so we're gonna give it a go. But it hasn't been done before. So we're gonna be building city-owned solar all around the city, storage, geothermal, in the model of a utility. We are a new municipal energy utility, but just unlike any that you've ever seen before, or anyone has ever seen before. So 4 pillars that I want to tell you about that are really fundamental to our strategy here. Okay, so first of all, for our solar, what we are talking about building is behind the meter, DTE interconnected, although that's on the customer. Ultimately, they can choose whether they want to do that interconnection or not. I anticipate the vast majority of customers will want to do that. And sort of single load serving systems in the near term. You've probably heard us talk about how as a utility we can build distribution and we can share energy and storage across property lines. And I am so excited about that possibility. And I am very confident we will do it. But that's probably a couple of years down the line. We've got to get systems built first. We've got to get sort of stable revenue in the door, be like an established utility before we move into the distribution side of things. Another really important pillar of what we're trying to do is to have a low barrier to entry for folks to participate, to be customers, right? So I am a personal solar. I have solar and have fully electrified my home. Did my first home in 2011, did solar again in 2019, did geothermal in 2023. Like, I care deeply about this and have been through this, and I know that like an average resident, even who wants to do this, is not necessarily going to be able to go through those steps. I've heard from even financially like very well off to do people who are like, I have the money, I could do solar, but like I don't know where to begin, like how to start reaching out to contractors and like just make all these decisions about it and who do I trust. And the city has already done a lot of work to try to make that easier through these group buy programs in Solarize that many of you have participated in, but nonetheless nonetheless, we're going to try to make that barrier to entry even lower, including getting rid of the financial barrier to entry by saying there's not going to be an upfront cost for folks to participate in this. It is a true sort of utility model where they pay as they go for the energy that they receive. I am also going to try to have the SEU reduce some of the decision fatigue that's involved in, choosing a solar system, right? That's another thing we hear from people. There's a lot of contractors, and I have to look at, they come to me with proposals of, here's 4 different kinds of panels and 4 different prices if you want to go with this one or this one. And, how much time do you want to spend researching that and trying to figure that out? It's really tough for the average Joe to decide that. So we're going to try to reduce decision fatigue for them by having this is the SEU standard, and this is the product that you can get, or the service or solution that you can get. In line with that, we are looking at trying to do sort of aggressive standardization. And I mean standardization of both equipment and design options for folks who become customers of the sustainable energy utility. And this is, will serve many purposes, one of which is that sort of decision fatigue for customers, but also ultimately, we are a business that has to own and operate these systems for the very long term. And so if we have completely different equipment and standards of design and all of that, it's going to be really hard for us to both sort of economically and just logistics and operations wise to manage all these systems. I need to have visibility into their performance, right? And maintenance schedule and everything. The more standardized it is, the easier that's going to be. In this sort of potential tomato throwing moment, we also have this idea, and very much want everybody's feedback on it, but of almost like a catalog of system options for residents, right? Where they can kind of look and see, you sign up for the solar, for the SEU, and here's your 4 kW system. You can turn the page and look at here's a 4 kW system, and here's a 6, and here's an 8, and here's a 10. And those are your 4 products that you can sign up and buy. And maybe there's a little flexibility in how you lay out your 4x3 panels. You could do 2x6 or 4x3, and that's one of your options in this catalog, right? So people can really just kind of again, reduce that decision fatigue, and for us know that we got these cookie cutters, and I hope that means we can install it faster and cheaper and more efficiently. Need your feedback on that. We'll have these conversations as we move into the next part of the session. And then lastly, another sort of breaking the standard model, at least from sort of a utility perspective, is we are thinking about doing, charging customers, right? So they're going to be customers of the SEU, so they'll pay a monthly energy bill. And we're thinking about essentially having a fixed capacity charge. So based on the system size that they choose, they would pay their fee based on that, as opposed to measuring kilowatt hours and billing on a variable basis. There's a variety of different reasons we're interested in pursuing this approach, partly for sort of customer ease of budgeting. Having worked in the utility, I know that sort of that unpredictability of your energy bill can be challenging for folks. The seasonality on solar, certainly to have really high bills in the summer when it's producing more and less in the winter, could be challenging. So this kind of fixes it. It also could help with some of the challenges. We will have folks who want to be customers of the SEU who have partly shaded east-facing roofs, and others who have beautifully unshaded south-facing roofs. And I would rather not have to say no to anybody. And so if they know, hey, this system is $50 a month, and we can help them understand what that production will look like they can choose if that's cost effective for them or if they still want to participate. So that's a couple of the reasons for thinking about this model. Lots more, and we can have conversation about it. One piece obviously is then we don't have to put in meters and the whole metering infrastructure, right? So, which is another sort of like big potential upfront expense and maintenance expense if we went that way. So interested in feedback on that as well. So that's a few of our pillars. Let me tell you a little bit about how we're actually planning to launch here. We are, in 2026, planning to do a pilot. We have financing for this, and we're going in one neighborhood on the south side of Ann Arbor, and then the plan is essentially to scale citywide in 2027. So this pilot will be our first SEU installations. These are grant funded. We have the grant funding already for the capital, so this is a go. We have what we think will cover roughly 100 to 150 homes in the Bryant neighborhood. It's on the south side of town, a neighborhood that has 262 homes in it. And the city has been working with them for years on this commitment that they brought to like wanting to be America's first carbon neutral neighborhood and the most sustainable neighborhood in the country. And so this is one way to help them get there. And so we're looking at installing on a large number of homes there. These are relatively small homes, a subdivision kind of that was built all at the same time. So we're thinking on average these are going to be 5 kW systems, and a great place to test this sort of like most of the roofs look the same. There's like a couple models of homes, so can you sort of test this idea of having a sort of standardized system design. We got to move fast on this. The grant funding, we've got deadlines for some of the funding coming up in I'm going to say August with my fingers crossed because we requested an extension. Hopefully we're going to get that. And then October for another chunk of the funding. So we've got to move fast to get these installed. Really exciting part of this is that one of the grants was specifically to help us stand up a virtual power plant with DTE. So we are in conversations with them. We've submitted proposals. Actually, later this afternoon, we have a conversation with them about this pilot VPP that we're looking at, where we would serve sort of grid capacity with the battery systems in the Bryant neighborhood, deploying either sort of either using the grid capacity to feed directly into the grid or load shaping in the homes to kind of reduce their burden on the grid. We're talking about what those details will look like, but really excited to potentially have one of the state's first VPPs if we get that through. And then, you know, a key thing here, I said, like, this is a pilot, right? We're going to try something. I don't know how everything here is going to work. Some things I hope will work really, really well, and we can take them and run with them. And I know we're going to make mistakes, and we're going to find things that we're like, oh, that didn't work how we thought it was going to work, or we had some learnings, and we're going to adjust this and modify it. So that's why I think, like, starting 2026 with this pilot in the Bryant neighborhood is a great way for us to learn and then take that and scale in 2027 citywide. So we are also, while we're deploying the pilot this year, we are preparing sort of everything that we need to go for a full-scale citywide launch in 2027. And of course, one essential element of that is getting our financing. So as soon as we have capital that we can start deploying to systems, if that's before the end of 2026, then great, we'll move this forward a little bit earlier. If it takes us a little longer, it might be a little later in 27 that we're sort of like hitting the ground running with installations. The city has a sign up for, it's sort of an expression of interest for people who want this service. We have more than 1,500 people on that right now, and that's really with no marketing or push. This is the people who the day after residents voted in 2024 were like, sign me up, where do I sign up, right? And so these are the people who are like really engaged and interested and have been following development of this, you know, from before even the vote. But just this month, we are starting our first marketing campaign to get more people on this list. So hopefully we'll have, you know, thousands of interested, and then even as it sort of whittles down, we'll be able to get 1,000 installations or so in 2027. One of the things about how we intend to do our 2027 sort of citywide rollout is, while we've been collecting interest from folks, we're not going to be able to get to everybody all at once. We will have to sort of batch the the systems in, and it's not going to be purely first come, first serve, because we really want to achieve economies of scale by kind of going like geography by geography, right? So we've already mapped out everybody who's expressed interest, and we can see like there's clusters, right? And so for those who are local installers who might be interested in bidding in to do installation work, I'd also love during the conversation part to hear your thoughts on like what kind of density and what kind of geography actually like gets those economies of scale, right? Is it, you know, we should have a couple of blocks with 5 homes, or it's like you want, you know, a square mile's too big for Ann Arbor, but like what is the size of the geography and density that really drives sort of step changes in economies of scale and in sort of efficiency of installation? So that is that's sort of like the general thinking. Here's a quick timeline, and I can't promise we're going to hold to all of this, but this is approximately the time frame that we're looking at. So we've been in planning, obviously, for years, but Q1 here, we really got to make some like very serious, hard decisions that will, at least for the pilot, determine how we move forward, and begin equipment procurement. If we end up going, we are in the process of drafting RFPs for equipment, and sort of considering, are we going to procure our own equipment en masse, or are we going to rely on our installation contractors for that? But again, for standardization, we're thinking about procuring our own equipment here. We also have a firm that we've brought on board that is working with us right now, developing the rates so that we can, you know, tell folks what they'll pay for this and actually get them to sort of officially sign on the dotted line and become customers. And we are working on sort of all of our IT systems that will need to be a fully operating utility. Just yesterday, our RFP for billing systems closed, so we'll be choosing a billing solution provider in the next month or so here, and then a lot of other IT systems will be able to lean on what the city already has. So those are kind of some fundamental, like, setting up operations for the utility. Then, of course, we've got our Bryant, oops, this isn't working, oh, there we go. We've got our Bryant installations, both our customer enrollment, we got to get officially, we have 45 people in the Bryant neighborhood who've already sort of raised their hand and said they would like this. And of course, we got to get to roughly 100 or 150, and you know, once we tell them the rates and so forth, you know, some people may fall off, new people may join, and then get those solar installations done essentially in the sort of April to October timeframe. And again, that's roughly 100 to 150. Then for our prep for our market installations, as I mentioned, this year is really focused on getting our financing in place. Then when we have our full rates, we can enroll customers in sort of Q4 of this year and Q1 of next year. And then, of course, I anticipate that'll continue sort of into perpetuity. But for the first batch, we'll get our enrollment locked down in Q1, and then we can start installing in Q2 next year. And again, my hope is we get 1,000 plus next year and scale from there, a couple thousand in 2028, you know, 10,000 in 2029. We got to go fast at that point and serve everybody who wants service across the city. Okay, how are we doing on time? Good, we're great on time. So that's what I had for you. And I think what we'll do now is I'd love to take like clarifying questions, you know, sort of follow-up questions to this, and then we'll break and do like the feedback and sort of discussion. And so I know there may not be like a very clear line between a clarifying question and a feedback question, but we'll try to stick more toward the like clarifying now and then get into sort of the feedback.
And this is important because the next move, we're all going to break up into groups, and we're going to be collecting your feedback on Shoshana's presentation. So I hope you were taking good notes, but now's a good time to get some clarifying questions answered so we can have better discussions at our tables.
Yeah. Yes, please, Scott.
Lots of focus on residential. Any consideration for industrial, commercial?
Yes, so fully anticipate that we will have commercial customers here. We can only operate within the city limits of Ann Arbor. So, I mean, industrial, yeah, there's like some small industrial, but not a lot. So we've mostly been talking about this as residential and commercial. But yeah, I am glad you asked that. 100% looking to serve the commercial market. I've been having conversations with property owners. One of the things we're trying to do here, like from an equity perspective, is make this available to renters, right? Which means we've got to be talking to the property owners and landlords and other kinds of commercial as well. Would love to serve it. And in fact, that's really important actually for us from a scale perspective. If we can get some larger commercial participants earlier, that'll be great. And I saw Missy raise her hand. You probably want to weigh in on that.
SEU is obviously nestled within the ecosystem of Ann Arbor, and as kind of context in that, last Tuesday we passed a green rental housing ordinance, which requires that landlords and property management firms either make improvements or demonstrate that they have efficient, safe, affordable housing. And so the SEU is one metric or one tool that they can use to come into compliance with that ordinance, amongst a bag of things. So just want to name, we're talking today about the SEU, but I want you to know we're trying to build an ecosystem around it that helps push people towards it, make sure people have access to all the accoutrements we need in that.
Yeah, thank you, Missy, great point. Yes, in the back.
So, the last few years, sort of historically, if you look at how many residential solar installs are in Ann Arbor per year, we're looking at, right? So, and that's people in this room doing it. How do you think about supporting, scaling up the folks in this room and others to meet that of 1,000 plus per year?
That's a great question. The question, and I'm going to just repeat it a little bit because we're recording this for later. So the question is sort of how do we think about supporting the installer to be able to, quadruple, quintuple, whatever the actual sort of annual installation rate that we've seen in Ann Arbor. That's why we have you here today, right? I know that we all know that the next couple of years are going to be quite challenging in this industry. So first thing is my commitment, I want the SEU to help be a bridge to better times and to keep this industry, do our small part to keep the industry afloat, whether that's our local installers and equipment manufacturers and so forth. But then how we scale from there, hopefully, and the city works very hard to push for supportive policy environments and that entire ecosystem of things that make this industry work. But I don't know how we're going to scale, workforce and procurement and all of that. And that's one of the things I look to you guys to provide input on what can we do to help with that. Certainly, I hope that continuing to share information about how we're progressing and what we're going to need and when we're going to need it can give you some of that insight to start scaling your own operations, right? But I would like feedback on that. So feel free to have that conversation when we do our little table group exercises. And yes, next.
So I'm a little confused as to how this is organized. Is a community energy cooperative maybe set up under a potential purpose trust so it has some autonomy from the vagaries of politics and city, governments?
Yes. So. Yeah, so the question is the structure of the SEU itself is actually, it is a municipal utility that the voters of Ann Arbor approved in 2024. So we are operating as a utility. We can get, municipal bond financing. We can do anything that a utility can do. The Michigan Constitution preserves the right for municipalities to have a supplemental utility in addition to the IOU that has a franchise. DTE has the franchise here. So we are set up as a utility. And yes, Brian.
So all of us in this room are going to have to think about pricing in order to meet what you're looking for. In terms of your business model, your financial model, maybe you don't know the answer to this yet, but whether it's per rooftop or per neighborhood, do you or your funders have an ROI in mind of if we're going to charge X to these residents, we know that we want to get paid back in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Do you have that thought through yet?
Yeah, okay, so the question is about what our sort of ROI that we need is and how does this work from a financing perspective. The good thing, part of the reason we are a municipal utility is that we don't have shareholders. We don't need an ROI except to cover our own cost of capital and to have sort of the reserve funds to keep the SEU, operational, right, and be able to withstand, okay, something happened to some systems, so we obviously need to have some reserve funds. But no, we don't have an ROI. We just need to cover our costs, and that's where we see, compared to a private enterprise trying to do this, some of the benefits, hopefully, that we can do this at a lower cost. With that scale. And so I don't know what the costs are going to be. I think, as you guys heard in our webinar presentation, we have to basically bid everything competitively at the city, right? So all of our work is going to happen through RFP to get the best competitive rates for our customers, and we have to manage our costs within the city really well, right? For all of our sort of like overhead and the administration of it, but yeah, we don't have an ROI. Yes.
Will the SEU own the systems?
The question is, will the SEU own the systems? And the answer is yes. The SEU will own the systems. As any utility, it will be our property. We will finance it. We will install it. We will own it into perpetuity. We will have responsibility for the maintenance and ongoing operation of the assets. Yes.
Part of the documents that you have online also mentioned that you're going to have existing solar systems that are able to tie into the utility. How is that going to work as far as how are they going to get compensated for that instead of being a flat fee versus what you have for the newer adopters?
Yeah. Okay. So the question is like. In some of our earlier documentation, we said that existing solar systems that residents have already or businesses have already installed could potentially become a member of or a customer of the sustainable energy utility, and how is that going to work? So that can, there's two ways that could happen. One, and we have thought about that, if folks wanted to sell us their existing systems and then just become a subscriber, they could do that. We're open to that. I think we're exploring that very deeply for like larger scale commercial systems right now because it could help us get to scale quickly with assets that are already in existence, and we could have sort of like revenue on day one of the sale and transfer, right? So we're looking at that for larger systems. I don't think we're going to go that route for existing residential systems right now, simply because then it becomes the challenge of we own a bunch of systems of different ages and different standard, right? Like it kind of breaks that whole like idea of having standardization. So that was some early thinking. It's probably not going to happen near term, maybe down the line. Now, the second model where we do eventually want to bring in existing customers is when we are actually building microgrids and doing distribution. Then we can have existing customers, or I shouldn't say existing customers, existing solar owners have a feed-in, right, tariff to the SEU and actually sell their energy via the SEU to their neighbor instead of selling it back to DTE, right? So that model, because we just need to get these sort of like single load serving installations at scale for a couple of years before we're ready to build that distribution. But when we do, there's just more thinking we need to do around exactly how that model will work, what kind of feed-in tariffs, and we probably will have to start metering, at that point for those customers so we know like actual flow of energy. Yep. Thank you. Yeah.
Question about, so you've talked about standardization of system design. How much insight or how nailed down is that at this point? Do you have an idea of like what kind of equipment you're looking at? And especially in light of if, say we're talking to a big commercial customer and they might be interested in someday, taking advantage of selling that system, we would want to make sure that we're like designing around, compliant stuff that fits within your design.
Yes. Yes, the question is, do we have our design standards or our equipment specifications? We do not quite yet, but very, very soon. We within the next few days, I think, are going to have a very good draft of our equipment RFP. Partly, we'd also like to hear your feedback on this. But we'll be looking at getting tier 1 equipment, but we're going to be RFPing it. So it's not like we have a manufacturer in mind, right? We're not saying it has to be like this OEM or this brand. But we'll have sort of requirements around, you got to have whatever 25-year warranty and this, degradation kind of commitment, and some things like that will be in that RFP. Yes. Yeah, right in front here.
You mentioned that SEU will own and finance and install and maintain the system. So I'm wondering, sort of contractually, how would that work? Would there be any possible agreement or something like this?
Yeah, so we're working on what the question is sort of if we're owning it, what is the customer sort of signing up for? Is there a contract or something? And we are really hoping to not do this via contracts, just like the city's other utilities, right? If you're a water customer in the city, like basically everybody is, there's a set of regulations that govern that are in the city's kind of code, if you will, and the SEU is authorized to adopt our own regulations, and so folks will essentially, when they sign up to be a customer, sort of say that they agree to those, which we are writing right now, thinking about sort of what are the terms and conditions of service, right? There will be some requirements that, you give us access, right? It's our equipment, so we have to have the right to access it, and, that probably we're going to say something like, you have to have 5 years left on your roof, and then if you need, once every 10 years you get a free panel remove and replace for some roof work if you need, but if you need it more often than that, you're going to pay for, we don't know exactly what those details will be, but those kinds of questions will be in the terms and conditions. And so rather than a contract, it will be as you sign up, you're agreeing to the city's regulations. Okay, I see one more. Oh, I see 2 more, and then I just want to be cognizant of our time. We're good? Okay, cool. Yes?
I just wanted to add, a lot of people install a renewable energy system, so it's grid optional, so they have a company. And just wondering if you consider that people might want to be part of a community energy cooperative rather than have this mandated top-down public utility. Because a lot of people I know are not going to be interested in prescribing another part of their life
To a utility.
someone else. So is this set in stone, or are you open to models?
Yeah, the question is sort of, are we set in stone with the utility model? Yes, we are, because it's what the voters approved. Not to say, but it is a completely optional model, right? So just to be really clear, what the voters approved was that the city is creating an opt-in, optional, supplemental, meaning we're not buying DTE's assets and trying to replace the sort of basic utility model, an opt-in, supplemental, 100% renewable energy. We're never building a gas plant or anything of that sort, right? 100% renewable, municipal, community-owned utility. So that is what the voters authorized, and that is the model we have to operate under. Folks who want to do other things can do other things. I hope there's still going to be plenty of customers coming. I know it's tough times right now with the change in tax code, but I hope people will still be getting their residential installs. I hope that the state is going to make community solar, easy to do and viable, and it'll grow. We are trying to fill a niche that may work for some people and may not work for others, and that's okay. As we have it right now, we got 1,500 signed up. I hope we'll grow to tens of thousands, but if something better comes along that can move faster, we are doing this to solve a problem, not to bring glory to creating a new utility. This is really hard to create a new utility. This is not the easy solution. It's just the only or best one we see right now. Okay, yes.
I have a question
Yeah.
in regards to vegetation management. Vegetation management is a large part of the distribution and transmission network.
Great question. Okay, the question is vegetation management. Are we going to get involved in that? Haven't thought about that, actually. I think that probably that will be on the homeowner or the kind of resident to decide, right? To say, like, if you put a system in here, like, here's how much shading you have. And by the way, like, if you trimmed a little bit of this tree right here, you could get that much more. Like, that's up to you. But I'd have to give that some more thought, so I'm glad you raised the question. Thank you. Yeah.
Welcome to Tree City, right? There's no bigger fight between these two issues. And so if you have thoughts about how you manage those for customers, we would like to hear that too, because I cannot see a world in which the SEU is saying, you have to take down the trees in order to get that solar system. We would just be cannibalizing our support base.
Yeah.
Maybe we should talk, or maybe we should talk after this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, and right in front here. Yeah.
Have you guys thought about what you're going to do with the end of life of these batteries, like recycling? How are you going to handle that capacity at that scale?
Yes. Yeah. The question is, what have we thought about sort of the end of life of batteries? We haven't, except to say that we want to be able to live our values as a city around sustainability at the end of life of these. So we've had a couple of conversations about, like, what does that circular economy for batteries look like? You know, I think everything I understand, and you guys can sort of give us more feedback on this, but, like, in 10 years, when our batteries are at end of life, there's going to be a lot of different options than there are today. So while I'm, like, trying to make decisions to sort of stand this up right now, like, I don't want to close doors that would be important in 10 years, but I also think a lot of new doors will be opening that we'll hopefully take advantage of. But we will be committed to doing everything we can for a sort of more sustainable circular economy end of life. Yes, go ahead.
2 questions. Have you guys thought about the tax credits and the rec monetization, since you guys are owning that as a municipal organization? What's the plan for those credits?
Yeah, what's the plan for the tax credits? So when we go out for our equipment RFP, obviously you guys know that right now sort of the fiat compliance and domestic content are key to the tax credits, and what I'm hearing is sort of like uncertain about the supply availability of things that do and don't meet those requirements. And so I think as we go out for RFP, we're going to be open to equipment that does and doesn't meet. And essentially our sort of, you know, when you go out to RFP, like, we'll be looking for low price among other criteria that we're looking for, and the price when we look at it will be sort of the net, right? So, like, if the non-tax credit eligible equipment is actually so much lower because there's just not enough supply, like, that might be the right choice, or maybe the right choice is to pay more per unit and be able to get the tax credits.
That's not the question.
Okay.
Let's say you invested $1 million into this asset.
Yeah.
Let's say that's the cheapest cost that you have. So you have these tax credits that are out there, right? I mean, we can monetize and then pass on that as a savings to the
Yes.
So
Yes. Yes, the city will absolutely, we can do direct pay and monetize the tax credits, and that would be just capital that we can redeploy into the system. Yes, 100%. And
to sell those credits in the market and then pass on.
I don't think, well, I'm not a tax lawyer, but we've done direct pay in the city, which I don't know is selling them. It's a direct reimbursement.
SRECs, renewable energy credits.
No, we need to retire those.
Yeah.
Right, we're a renewable utility with a carbon neutrality goal, we can't sell the renewable.
So you're going to keep them in the
Yeah.
We got sunset and retire.
Yep. Okay, go ahead, back there.
Yeah, will the SEU be able to approve of newer existing technologies that the other utility companies haven't or won't?
Yeah, the question is, can we approve of new technologies? Yes. I mean, we are trying to be like the utility of the future and forward thinking. And so I guess I'll say 2 things. One is on, like, the actual sort of equipment, like Probably sort of for this first round, while we're trying to get started, I don't want to get too far out over my skis, and like we need to go with sort of like established commercial scale proven equipment. But as we get more established and are like going strong, I would love to see us out there piloting and being an opportunity for like new equipment to get tested, right? We have a very like tech forward community here. Like let's be that hub where we can test that. And then second, right now with the SEU thinking like, okay, we're doing solar, we're doing storage, we're doing network geothermal, and like, you know, we can do heat pumps and on-bill financing for energy efficiency and so forth. If there is at some point a new renewable energy source, the SEU's, the ordinance that established the SEU says we are allowed to, with basically me and Missy's or our whoever may be in our footsteps, in our shoes in 10 years or whatever, with sort of approval between sustainability and the SEU, we can adopt other technologies as well that are sustainable energy. Okay, I want us to be able to have really good like conversations at our table and get feedback on some of the questions here. I know there's like more clarifying questions, and we can sort of hopefully cover these, and I'll wander around and chat with folks and all. But thank you so much. Fantastic questions, and I'm gonna pass it off to Martha at this point to talk us through this next exercise.